Okay, it's being live streamed on YouTube now. Okay. Okay, it's been live streamed and it's being recorded. So David Bradley, you yourself have been on this journey for 20 years and you're in Brighton. Brighton is a hotspot because of Sussex Police. And you probably know all the other victims of war crimes, state war crimes, state terrorism, such as John Hoth. Who else do we have down there? Edward Ellis was down in Brighton, wasn't he, before?
Yeah, he stayed with me for while he did my case. And that's a long story in itself, really. But basically, I've got a good friend of mine, Barry Brooks. He's in a wheelchair with a broken back. He's got one lung. He's got a heart condition. He's got the most horrendous psoriasis. And he's hounded by the DWP and such like. He served 4 years in prison for an offence he never committed. And at the end of his sentence, they decided to give him an extra month on his sentence, which he served. And in that extra month, his father died. They, in effect, they have made his life a misery. And now they're after a debt that he doesn't owe. And they've got this fictitious arrest warrant. And they turned up at his door this morning. I mean, this fictitious arrest warrant has been out for years. But now all of a sudden they've decided to implement it. And they turned up at his door this morning at 7:30. He was not prepared to cooperate with the two gentlemen banging on the door. And I received a message from him because of the distress it caused. And now he finds himself, as I do, traumatized, trying to deal with the situation, which is a result of the corruption in the legal system, basically. And not only is the corruption, organised crime corruption in the legal system, but it's in all local services, council, courts, you name it, they're in it. And they're just exploiting the situation of vulnerable people. And it's most disturbing to live a life. In fact, it's unsustainable for the pair of us. And it's not an arrest warrant they've issued, it's a death warrant for him. It's literally a death warrant. So we've discussed this at some considerable length. And if they're minded to implement a death warrant, we might as well start the fight from the minute they try to take us away. And that's what we've decided to do. Under no circumstances are we going to be carted off to prison again for something that we never did. And that's the end of it, really. But it's trying to live a life with constant drip of coercion running through it.
Is this Sussex Police we're dealing with here?
As far as I'm aware, it is. They're notorious. Edward has extensive knowledge of the corruption in Sussex Police and other police forces as well, really. It's my grandparents wouldn't have fought in the wars to end up in a society that we have today, run by organised crime and corruption, just blatantly robbing people and using the Proceeds of Crime Act to do it.
So they're robbing millionaires. I mean, Barry was just telling me that he was a millionaire, and
yeah, I know this story better than most. Actually, they seized £6.7 million worth of assets off of him, put him in prison, and then sold the lot. They sold it all, divvied it out amongst themselves, the properties, the cars, the assets. 30 people lost their jobs. He was running a very successful motorcycle business. The 30 people that worked in the motorcycle business were dismissed, and to this day they're still waiting for their redundancy payments from the DWP, who invoked the Proceeds of Crime Act and then went on to divvy up the assets, have him incarcerated for a crime he never committed, and he served 4 years. At the end of the sentence, they weren't content with the 4 years. They put another month on the end of it and created... You have to excuse me. Hello? You need the name or the address that you've got to join. I've got Barry on the phone. He needs to know the name of the meeting. I can't hear you now. I can't hear you.
Oh, sorry, the passcode.
The passcode.
265.
265.
194.
194. We should see you coming up then, should we? Oh, okay. He's going to try. He thinks it might be because he's on the phone to me that he can't get through. Should we wait for him or continue?
Oh, no, you just carry on talking and I'll try and send him the link on Facebook as well.
So the poor man was convicted for a crime he never committed and sentenced to 8 years in prison. He served 4. He's in a wheelchair with a broken back. They denied that he had anything wrong with him, but subsequent evidence has proved that he does have a broken back and he's unable to walk, and he is in a wheelchair, and he does have one lung, and he does have psoriasis, and he does have an enlarged heart. He's a very, very vulnerable person who's being hounded, in effect, by the DWP, the very people who should be supporting him. But they've robbed him, incarcerated him, and now they want to kill him, which would tidy up all their loose ends, I guess.
Yeah.
The case Edward has taken to the Royal Commission, and he is aware of the situation, but unfortunately he's in a poor state of health himself, and at this very time he's having kidney dialysis. So
yeah.
I'm trying the best I can to cope with the situation and do as much as I can to avoid the poor man's death.
Yeah. 265194, isn't it? 265194. Yeah, hopefully that should work. So, David, I know that Barry sustained a lot of his injuries whilst he was in prison. Somebody tried to kill him in prison, didn't they?
I'm not sure he sustained any injuries while he was in prison, apart from the lack of medication that he they used it really to torture him, not give him his medications. And of course, with chronic psoriasis, you need a lot of medications. I mean, if you could see the poor man's skin, it is horrendous. It is absolutely horrendous. And then to contrive to withhold medication, they want him gone, basically, because he's got such a good case, and the only way they can solve the case is to murder him. I mean, he's had that's how he lost his lung. He lost his lung because they tried to murder him. He ended up with an embolism, and they had to remove the lung to save his life. But it was the police that caused the embolism. Sorry.
Yeah. So
they couldn't accommodate his wheelchair, So they put him in a cupboard and padlocked him to the wheelchair and left him there for 23 hours. They forgot he was there or left him there on purpose. And when they finally discovered him, he was unconscious. They rushed him to hospital, and it was purely by luck. There was a doctor who had just treated a case of an embolism, realised the symptoms, and was able to save his life by disconnecting one of his lungs.
So coming back to this morning, 7:30 this morning, police have arrived at his home.
No, I've got to correct you there. I wasn't aware it was. I wasn't aware it was the police. It was CDER officers or
Bailiff.
attendants, basically, because they're not officers, are they? They're attendants. And it says he's got. I've just got a text message from him now. He says he's unable to join the conversation.
Oh, maybe he's confused because we got two links. We had the live link from Facebook, and could you text him? It's on Messenger. The link is on Messenger. I put the link on Messenger. Maybe I should email him.
Yeah, I would.
The link. Like, you've emailed it to him though.
Yeah, but he's probably in
Zoom link. You should say Zoom. Let me just say.
To be honest, he would be finding it very, very difficult to function as I am.
Oh yeah, that's
because we're traumatized.
Yeah.
And they know this, and they do it on a regular occurrence. They like to traumatize people.
Yeah.
First, the very people who should be assisting us and helping us are the people that are aggravating the situation. And they've got the confidence of organised crime behind them to continue to do it because there's nobody can stop them. The politicians don't want to know. The legal system is runs at snail pace deliberately. Should we stop this and start again when Barry's joined us?
I can pause the recording. That's a good idea. I'm not thinking either. Pause. But the live stream is still going on.
Okay, well that's not a problem.
Still,
We've got, I don't mind that.
You can carry on talking because it is being recorded. Can you talk about the John Hoth case? Because that was a robbery of land and assets by the Sussex police, wasn't it?
To be honest, I'm not aware of the detail.
Yeah, Edward's done a lot on that. I'm just sending the link out now. What's your email address? David Bradley, is it?
Is this recorded live?
Oh yeah, I've got you. Don't worry, I've got you. I'm going to send it out. I've sent the email out. So back to yourself, and I'm going to carry on recording now. Oh, it is recording. It says.
Well, you know, perhaps this is a good opportunity to express why I found myself. I complained about my next door neighbour's barking dog. I found myself in prison for 3 weeks, and now they've put a £500,000 claim on my house at the land registry that I'm trying to have removed. It's fraudulent. The original case was void. Brighton Council conspired to pervert the course of justice by withholding the evidence regarding the dog warden and my complaint. And okay, they ended up charging me with beating my next door neighbour with a hose pipe.
We've got, sorry to interrupt you, David, we've got Baz Brooks on now. Baz, well, you will get activated when you speak because my system only allows a speaker to be video.
Okay, no problem.
Right.
Hi Barry Brooks.
Hi Neelu.
Hi. Barry, do you want to tell us what's happened this morning?
Well, I had a contact letter from CDER, which is this government-sponsored thug bailiff company, and it's regarding an outstanding matter with the DWP, which is an ongoing argument. But they came to take me away, to arrest me, would you believe?
But the CDER would
CDER
there's no police.
No.
No police. So CDER are now police officers, are they?
Well, this is it. They say under the Magistrates Act they can do that. They can't. They're a private company.
But you're fearing for your life at the moment because you're in a wheelchair and seriously disabled.
Yeah, I'm an electric wheelchair user, so they have no facility. Even if the police turned up, they have no facilities to take me away anywhere. They can't even transport me.
But 7:30 this morning, without paperwork, impersonating police officers, coming to the home of a severely disabled wheelchair user,
yes,
is an act of war against you, and it's basically an attempt to assassinate you.
Well, terrorism. Yeah, I've already lost a lung when they arrested me last time. They arrested me on the Friday the 13th of January 2013. And they didn't have access for me in a cell, so they handcuffed me to my manual wheelchair for 21 hours with no food, drink or toilet. And I got a DVT in my right leg, which became an embolism, and I lost my right lung. That was the last time they arrested me.
And this is Sussex Police, so you've had this from them for 12 years, you're saying?
Yes.
And it all started because they decided to rob all your assets because you're a multimillionaire?
Yes. Yeah, I had 3 companies and I ran a charity. I had a couple of £1 million homes, one in Buckinghamshire and one in Bromley in London, just outside London. I had 39 staff that they all sacked. The day they arrested me, they sacked all my staff. If you and I did that, we'd be prosecuted. My staff never received their outstanding money or anything. And they closed down the companies that even my uncle owned, nothing to do with me.
So how much is your claim? We were saying, how much is your claim worth against?
In real terms, just over £50 million now in lost property, lost income and destroyed evidence and so on.
That's actual losses, but then obviously your injuries are extra, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, that doesn't include a lung. My partner died while I was in the coma from the embolism. My father died 2 weeks before I came out of prison after what they did to me, because they gave me 8 years for nothing.
So they framed you, they locked you up, they hoped you would die.
Yes.
And this is what Sabine McNeil is going through right now, David Noakes, Linda Thayer. They lock up important people, they become whistleblowers, or then put in jails, they become political prisoners. Yes. And then whilst they're robbing your assets, they're hoping you're not going to come out alive. And you've been helping a lot of people in a similar. You've got other cases like this, haven't you? Because Edward Ellis was dealt with in a similar way.
Yeah, one of the processes they do with the Proceeds of Crime Act is that they take all of your assets, take all of your money, but they leave you with all of your debts. So you're left and expected to go bankrupt. Unfortunately for them, I did a lot of years at university, so I studied common law. And I started doing letters to write off the debts for myself. And in the end, I wrote off just over £268,000 in credit cards and car loans and so on. And I thought, well, there's a business in this. So I started doing it for my fellow prisoners and helping them. And then eventually got into the law arguments with all of the prisoners as well. So for the last 12 years, I've been working very hard to help people with mortgages, credit cards, student loans, things like that. I've written off £15 million so far.
And is it something that you can share with us now, as in, like, do you want everyone to do this? Or, because obviously they don't want you to be carrying on with this. So it's an opportunity for you to put this out, whatever
one of the things that happens when you get involved in common law is you learn just how much of the system is corrupt and how much of it is just about money generation. It's not about, living or society or anything else or protecting anybody. So my first contact was with the police that I thought were police. I grew up in a country where you respected the police and they were there for law and order. But as it turns out, they're a political arm of the arm of the political theatre, and they're just there as a private company. In 2008, all of the police companies became companies, not police forces. So, yeah, that's just one example. CDER is acting as bailiffs. All of the courts got rid of their bailiffs in 2008. So there are no official bailiffs. There's nobody with the powers of a bailiff anymore. They're all private companies.
I would guess that the banks are behind this because the banks don't want you to do this work.
It's deeper than that, I'm afraid. The corruption goes from the bottom to the top. So it means that all of the courts are corrupt, all of the police are corrupt, all of the MPs are corrupt. Every system that you think of as the hierarchy of this country is corrupt from top to bottom.
But I would think the banks are running the whole show.
Of course, yeah. It's all about generation of revenue for the people at the top.
And the criminals have got the money, and the honourable whistleblowers and professionals are being targeted because we're finding out that they're not really properly qualified to be running this country. They never had any qualifications. They come in through the back door, and they've been using illegal extrajudicial processes to do this.
Yeah, well, Theresa May's election was illegal. They fiddled the expenses for the election in 37 regions. So Theresa May should never have been elected, and that complete election was illegal, just as an example. But yeah, who do you report it to? You can't report anything to the police because they work for them.
Did she come from down your end, down Surrey, Sussex area?
No idea.
Her father was a priest in down that way, somewhere there.
Well, this is a common thing as well. I've got a friend who just tried to go into theology college, and everything they're doing there is the work of the devil. They're all programmed. Because he wouldn't wear a mask, they threatened to throw him away from the course.
Oh yeah, it's all slavery and slave mastery. There's nothing in between. Anyone else who is not in that system is a political prisoner.
Yeah.
So that's how they got away with it. But how do you feel right now that, because CDER, we have got quite a few cases against CDER. I don't know if you know a guy called Anthony Badaloo.
No, I know him very well, yeah. I've gone online. There's 156,000 outstanding cases against CDR at the moment. So, yeah, there's a lot of people against them.
So they think that just by getting rid of you, killing you, murdering you, torturing you, that they're going to be okay to carry on. Is that what they think?
Well, they'd be very mistaken, because I've left all the information for anybody to use, and my friend David Bradley has access to that. But, you know, it goes deeper than that. I mean, the reason they picked on me in the first place was because I ran a charity in West London where a gentleman called Barry George ran to escape from the police when he was accused of killing Jill Dando.
Oh, yeah.
So, well, I was chief executive of that charity where he hid, and I had access to all of the files and all of the information. And I kept stating that Barry George never did anything. He was not responsible for it. He was barely capable of writing his own name, never mind holding a pistol. And yet they prosecuted him successfully, and he served 10 years, but they released him, and he never received any compensation, very interestingly. But the details I got from that was that Tony Blair and the entire government were responsible for the death of Jill Dando because she was about to expose the Dolphin Square paedophile ring involving all the MPs, judges and chief constables.
And that's what it's about, isn't it?
Yes.
Barry, it's what it's about.
Yeah.
It's about Tony Blair. And we got quite a bit on Sherry Blair with Carol Woods. Our whistleblower Carol Woods has got a lot on Sherry Blair because Carol Woods stood up against Sherry Blair in court and won against her because they were trying to steal this land for the casino in Blackpool. And Carol Woods blew the whistle on that, stopped them stealing 130 acres of public land through the council.
Well, it was a family business, wasn't it? Tony Blair would introduce legislation and Sherry Blair was paid by Europe to fight the legislation. So it was just a family business. That's all they were doing. Tony Blair's government in 13 years introduced more laws than 720 years of previous governments. So an interesting statistic, that one.
Okay, so basically we're saying that all laws made whilst Tony Blair was in power are void because of this.
Well, it goes further than that, doesn't it? Because if you know common law, firstly, you'll know about the meeting of the Lords over the invocation of Section 61 of the Magna Carta. But if we go before that, you've got the Maastricht Treaty in 1997 when John Major finished as Prime Minister, and that removed the Queen as the authority at the head of state. So basically every law since 1997 is illegal because there's no head of state, no crown to satisfy the requirement to justify the laws. You know, if you go into a court with a large crest behind the judge, that stands for nothing anymore because the Queen technically resigned, thanks to Tony Blair.
Okay, and he didn't have the authority to do that. So no. We've been run by a criminal government. The government's been criminal, extrajudicial, because the authority came from the oath to...
Yes. Yeah, it's a terrorist organisation, basically, with their own definition.
Sorry.
But it's a criminal organisation, terrorist organisation, by their own definition, and they're using the police as the political enforcement wing of their terrorism. This is where they're taking people's houses illegal, repossessing. I mean, look at Lloyd's, 640,000 illegal repossessions, and they used the police to help them.
Well, shall we call them, not call them illegal repossession? Shall we just call them thefts of assets? Yeah,
same thing. Yeah.
Well, it's actually attempted murder, isn't it? When you throw somebody out of their home, it's an act of war crime. Isn't it an attempted murder every time? Because you throw people on the street and you can't do that under
attempted manslaughter. Yeah.
So if we say 640,000
families, not just individuals, but
families, incidents of corporate manslaughter attempts, which obviously that confirms that what you said is it's a criminal organisation running the UK government since 1997. So we just like David has said how he feels, like you feel so. First of all, you're in shock that this is going on for longer than you know it, and there's nothing we can do about it, and it's outright what is it? It's extrajudicial, but it's defiance to crimes, because these people, as you say, the paedophilia, the children, the babies, they're still not being listened to. Wilfred Wong has got 17 years, 22 years for going to rescue a boy with his mother and their friends, the friends of the mother. She's a veterinary surgeon. She's not a stupid person. She's a highly educated, highly respectable lady. She found out that her son was being abused by his own father. Yes. And they rescued this child. And now they've been put in about 63 years of jail. So it's a circle, isn't it? Jill Dando was murdered and somebody was framed. So why was this guy framed for her murder? Why did they pick on him? Because he was vulnerable? He
was an easy target, yeah. He had a mental problem anyway. And he was a very easy target to frame, as was I. I was an honest man and in business doing the honest thing. Everyone said, well, why didn't you keep all your money offshore so they couldn't get to it? Well, I wasn't doing anything wrong, was I? So there was no need for me to do that. There's no reason to hide. And this is one of the conversations you have with people. Oh, well, if you haven't done anything wrong, you've got nothing to worry about. That's not so, because they'll come for you eventually when they decide to.
Yeah, this is it. They get everyone. You work hard all your life, you create something, and then they come through the back door and they snatch it away from you and they kill you for it. So they've been doing that for centuries around the world. They've been going around talent scouting, all the talents, the professionals, the royals, the beautiful people, and stealing their children, the princesses, and mixing the DNA and not allowing the royals to reproduce. So this has just hit us now, right at the end now. We've kind of, it's gone a full circle around the world, isn't it? It's hit us in the UK. This is why, I knew of it 60 years ago in India as a child.
Yes.
And that's why my dad as a judge came over to England, and all of my family of judges for 300 years, they were all in Lahore, the top world centre for law, and they moved it to Calcutta, then they moved it to Delhi, and Delhi's just like a jungle. It's like London is a jungle. England is a jungle compared to how civilized Lahore was for 300 years before that.
I don't know if you know about the gentleman who wrote the biography of the mafia in Italy, and he spent over 25 years studying and exposing the mafia and the hold it had over the government in Italy. And when he was interviewed, they said to him, what do you think is the most corrupt country in the world? And they were expecting him to say Italy. And he said, oh, definitely the United Kingdom.
Yeah, you know that.
Yeah.
It's true. We know that. That's how they kept the...
Oh, no, I had no idea until I had this direct involvement with what they did to me and everyone around me. I mean, my 75-year-old parents were made homeless because I bought everybody a house in my family. I was wealthy. My sister was made homeless. My uncle was made homeless. My best friend was made homeless, all on the same day. And all with no paperwork, no court orders, no nothing. Just might is right. So if you turn up with enough thugs, you win. I mean, one of the things we've been doing in Brighton is we have a new organisation where we turn up with 40 people to outnumber the thugs that turn up to repossess homes. So we've successfully blocked 11 repossessions in the past 2 years, just by outmanning them, by having more might.
Yeah, we've just got Andrew Devine joining us from Greece.
Yes.
Andrew and Anthony Badalou worked together earlier regarding this.
Yes.
Andy, Barry's had CDER bailiffs telling at the door 7:30 this morning, telling him that he's in a wheelchair, telling him that they're going to break his door and arrest him. This is bailiffs now pretending to arrest disabled people in a wheelchair because Barry has written off £15 million worth of debts, loans, and he has had about £6 million worth of assets stolen over the 12 years, and falsely prosecuted and jailed for many years, and because he was running a charity where the man who was accused of murdering Jill Dando came to Barry and told Barry that he was being framed, and Barry knows the truth about the lie about the murderer of Jill Dando, even though this other Barry spent time in jail for that as well. So Barry's just telling us, all the people, that the work he does is to stop the bailiffs coming, and he's been helping people with similar situations where they've had their assets being stolen by Brighton, Sussex police. So I was hoping Anthony would join us, because CDER, and Barry was just saying they've got about 160 odd thousand claims against them for this kind of terrorism. And he said that there's been 640,000 homes stolen in the UK alone.
That's just by Lloyd's. That's just the Lloyd's figures I've got.
Isn't that shocking? I mean, this is England, right? The most civilized country in the world.
Yeah, really?
Well, I had a phone call because obviously, you know, the one with the council tax, and also we have the one with the one that has stolen the child of Karen's.
Yes.
But the use pure and simply of a counterfeit in the courts, because what the council are doing, they're hiring the court building, they're operating a phantom court, kangaroo court, whatever you want to call it. But ultimately, because they're all in it together as the pyramid of terror, as we call it, the police at the top, the council and the courts all working together in the private, with no public record. There's no record. There's no case management file or anything of these courts. So she went to the police. One of the ladies went to the police yesterday, and she mentioned fraud, and they just handed her the action fraud. Call them, contact them.
Yes.
And the other lady went also to the police yesterday, and the policeman's. I've just finished listening to. That's what I was doing. I just finished listening to her talking to the police. They wouldn't give her a crime number. They pushed the civil all the time, constant civil. So
yes.
You know, she made it more than clear that, you know, this is not civil anymore. This is now crime, and the veil's been lifted, my friend. You know, they can't claim civil because this is a crime. These people are Act, you know, so.
Yes.
But the policeman said, I'm going to run down now and try and find out if the court's got any record of it. Even though one of the woman previously phoned up on the courts, she knew somebody in there. And
Yes.
the numbers in, there was nothing there. We've already got the emails back from them saying that there's nothing there. There's no record of it. So it's completely, so I phoned up Action Fraud yesterday, and Action Fraud themselves, they've got no powers of investigation. And I phoned up and explained to them this, well, yeah, you report it to us and you pass it further on. So I'm yet to do that phone call now. The next one's going to be to the,
We're coming to this from two different angles here, because I've just done with a client, he had a council tax case against him, and I did a data subject access request on both the court and the council, and the court responded in writing to say they had no outstanding warrants or liability orders for this client, and the council then promptly gave us a forged liability order that they claimed was from the court. So we caught them.
Courthouse. They call it the courthouse.
Yeah.
They don't say it's from the court now. They say it's from the court building.
It's anything but a court.
Yeah.
But we framed them, so we've got all the evidence we need. So I am going to take him to the CID. One of the things your clients can remember is that if you report a serious crime, the police are required to investigate.
Yeah.
They're not allowed to hide behind the civil matter argument.
He did say that, he said, like, you know, because he said, well, I don't know, he said, it's over my head, he says, but, you know, so what happens if you go, because he said, like, I've got to get on the call. I said, well, you've got the evidence here. He says, your colleagues already phoned.
Yes.
And said there's not. I said, no, but I need to go down. He said, I need to go down. Didn't want to take the numbers or anything, but he was just going to go down with her information and name, you know, all the details, and go and see what records they have got in the court.
Yeah.
So what if you come back and they haven't got anything?
There you are. Well, they haven't. How can a court of no record have any records? They don't have any.
Exactly. I know it's crazy when you see what, I mean, it's clear. I mean, I made this phone call to this lady on Action Fraud yesterday. I'm just editing it now because it was a 40-minute wait before I got through to the phone. So, but I think the way I've explained it, I think it will be very eye-opening for the people, because now I explained it very clearly. I said, okay then. I said, so let me put it this way then. I says, because the Royal Courts of Justices, they've got a number on their door says that you can hire the room. I says, so if I phoned up, hide the room, got a group of actors, and went to the room, set it all up as a court, put them in their positions, told them what to act as. You're going to act as a judge, you're going to act as a prosecution, you're going to act as just as the clerk. I send the letters out to these certain individuals who all want to steal their money off. Put them as a false summons, bring them into this court, that I've created now, and then, hold them in there. If they don't turn up, let's say, then I create some other documents, pieces of paper that look like a warrant, and then I hire another group of thugs, who dress up as bailiffs, who go and take and steal the money off them. I says, what happens then? I says, am I breaking the law? Have I committed a crime? Or are you saying that's civil? You know what I mean? And she was, she just said, you know, whatever you report, I will forward it on. I said, well, rather than you forward on, I says, why don't you just give me the name? So I eventually got them. She gave me the name, and the name of the next one who they would send it to was, where was it? It is. Yeah, my filing work is never very clear. I always need the secretary, but here it is. It's the National Fraud Investigation Bureau. That's it. So that's the next one I'm going to go to. I mean, I'll just go and keep going until I get to the top. That's all you can do. So until someone is prepared to say, and I says, listen, you can't. I says, look, we're not talking corporate here, because we're not talking about corporate anymore. We're talking about law, not legal. This is law now. You know, you pierce the veil. This is criminal. This is criminal. And the thing is, when I'm going to get to speak to them as well, and this is another thing that twigged in my head, because at the end of the day, when we're speaking to these people, we can't deal with anybody in the bar because they're on a private oath. They're under a private oath. It's in a secret society that the bar is, and they're under two oaths. They're under a public oath and they're under a private oath. And their private oath is superior to their public oath. They must recuse themselves, but they don't, because they do what they do. Yeah. And the same goes when any of these police or any of these people in these positions, you're going to come across, they're going to be a Freemason. So we need to know, under the penalty of perjury, whether they are Freemason, because again, we're talking private oath. You can't have two masters, and that's all we're coming across. Every time we've got two masters. So eventually I'm going to try and find, and when we do find, that's going to be the spark of the investigation, because everything that you're saying, everything that's been going on, it's all been done through fraud. It's all
if we can just revisit the action fraud, one of the things to remember, you can actually use the system against them, because if you go on the action fraud website, it automatically generates a crime number when you do the report.
Oh, right. Okay.
So for the lady that needed the crime number, you can do it by putting in a written report. It automatically generates the crime number.
Excellent. Yeah. So
I use it all the time.
Yeah, I'll do that one. So what's happened then? I mean, you say the bailiffs have gone around. Have they actually done anything?
Well, bailiffs in inverted commas, but I mean, there was one gentleman I'm a big chap. I'm 6 foot in, stocking feet when I'm not in a wheelchair. I weigh 150 kilos. My wheelchair weighs over 300 kilos. It would take more than 6 police to move me if I don't want to be moved. And they don't have the transport. I spent 8 years in prison thanks to what they did to me, and they made me serve every day. They don't have the facilities. They only have 2 vehicles in all of the UK that can transport anybody in a wheelchair, and most of those are occupied with transporting prisoners in up and down the country. So I know for a fact they can't take me anywhere or transport me anywhere. So I'm happy for them to knock on the door as many times as they like or kick it down. But they turned up at 7:24 this morning, small chap and a female, claiming to have the powers to arrest me and take me away.
So it was you they came for? It was you? I've got Barry Lyndon. I've got Barry Lyndon down here. Someone said
him as well. Yeah, no, they're probably doing 16 people a day up and down the country. Yeah.
No, it's a mate of mine. She's got the wrong name. She's just got it wrong. So it's you they've come to. Okay. Sorry, I got you. I'm going to say I didn't think Barry was in a wheelchair. Barry Lyndon's not in a wheelchair anyway. That's why I was getting a bit confused there. Okay.
Well, I have been since 1993, but that's another matter.
Yeah. So they've come and gone then, yeah?
Yeah, I've had no information. They said they'd leave a letter. I haven't been out to my post box yet.
Okay. So, and what alleged bailiff company was they meant to be from?
CDER. They're the official government sponsored official bailiffs, if you like. Without the word bailiff being entered. Agents.
What was the order or warrant that they was meant to have obtained?
Oh, well, it's a bit involved, so I'll try and abbreviate it. But with the proceeds of crime, they take everything off you. They take all your assets and houses and properties and cars and everything in your account. They even took the money out of my wallet on the day of arrest. And City of London Police managed to steal £5,000 of mine, while that money was being processed, funnily enough. The court was caught out because I had a forensic accountant appointed by the court, by the prosecution. She gave me all the information and then resigned because she found out that the judge had taken £50,000 from the money himself. So she walked away. But this was the £250,000 that I was left in debt. They applied and said that they want interest on it because they ran out of time. Because I know law, I managed to keep them going for 35 months, and the deadline on the proceeds of crime is 24 months. So I won the case, but they didn't like losing, so they applied the interest on the 268,000 that didn't exist. So they're chasing me for 24,000 fictitious interest on something that they shouldn't be able to apply because it didn't exist. So they've made up this 24,000 charge, and that's why they're sending bailiffs to my door.
And I take it that do you understand about getting the case management file? The case management file from the...
There are no case management files, there are no case papers, and there is no official warrant. I have a police friend of mine that actually went to Westminster Magistrates Court to ask for a copy of the warrant, and they couldn't provide one.
Yeah.
I've had no paperwork. In 12 years, I've had no official paperwork from anybody.
Yeah. That's why I say when we crack this, like as Anthony Baddeley, when he pointed out with the scambusters.tv, what it is this is for how he called it was like the PPE, the claim back for all the crime that's been done, and it's been done, like you say, to everyone. Well, everyone I've looked at since finding and speaking with Anthony, and I twigged what he said. Once I realised, because again, it's how do we wake the people up? How do we make the people aware of what's really going on?
You can't.
And talking like we're talking is one thing, but being able to show them something is going to be more.
I think we're getting there. I mean, certainly I am. We've got this client where I've framed them with the data subject access requests, and when I managed to go to court with my own council tax, and I managed to get a court order from the very court we were in to insist that they show me the audited accounts of the local council. Well, Brighton and Hove Council is corrupt like every other council, but they're a £1 billion turnover company now, and they haven't published their audited accounts, their public accounts, for over 6 years. So I now have a court order. So every time they chase me for council tax, I just put them in contempt of court because they can't provide their audited accounts to prove how they've calculated my bill. So I'm just using their own system against them, basically. But we're nearly there. We've got all this information that's coming to a head.
Yeah.
Once you present that to most right-minded people, they'll understand.
Yeah.
But it needs to be that evidence in black and white. Otherwise, people don't believe you.
Yeah, I mean, it's confession from the court. I mean, the court themselves state, in black and white, that there is no. I mean, on the council tax, we've got, Anthony's got a letter from a court manager stating that the council hire the building and operate the buildings of court themselves. I mean, that, and you've also got another recording. I saw that observation deck put out there on the 1st of October, where someone phoned up and the court assistant, bless her, she said it exactly as it is. No, they've got their own judges. No, they're not. They're using their judges.
Well, I've actually got a surreptitious video, not myself, somebody else recorded it, of me talking to the clerk and him confirming that the council issues the summonses and the liability orders and nothing is held there in the courts.
There you go.
And I've noticed there's a change now. There are a couple of councils, including Brighton, who now don't even pretend to hold it in a court. They summons you to the court and then you're redirected down to a room in the council offices. So they're not even bothering with that theatre anymore, probably to save money.
They're a law above themselves, so that's what they're
exactly right.
Well, but under the Local Government Act in 2008, with the Lisbon Treaty and other things that went on, councils now own 20% of all of the local courts anyway. They derive income from them.
Yeah.
So there's a conflict of interest anyway with any council tax bill going to any court.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. For sure, yeah. And I mean, with the tricks and traps, how they do that, they're sending it to the all caps postcode. Turning your property into a corporation, into a company, so that they can charge those fees. And the same with electric and gas and everything else. So because
I'll bring in David here because Dave actually accompanied me up to Westminster Magistrates Court, and I described to him exactly the script that they would go through to try and get joinder with me and make me roll over. And when we got there, he was amazed. It was the first time he witnessed it. They literally followed the script that I'd said to him to the letter almost, and he nearly fell off his chair in the public gallery. Didn't you, Dave?
I did, and then they when they couldn't obtain joinder, they called for the security, had Barry escorted from the building, and then sat in the court and discussed how they just had him thrown out and they would mark him down as not attending.
Yep.
And it was basically to get up to Westminster Court with somebody in a wheelchair and back home again was a 12-hour operation. And we did it a couple of times, and the same thing happened. They just because they couldn't get their way with the joinder issue, they just turned around and said that he hadn't attended and carried on, marked him down as not being there, and thought it was funny. And at the same time, the two members of the Metropolitan Police Force sitting in the court, keeping an eye on the corruption that's going on, and one of them
stayed silent. Yeah, sorry, you.
One of them introduced himself and identified himself, and that's how we knew. We all often wondered who they were.
All right.
And when this guy introduced himself, that's and he showed his card, and because the discrepancy was, they're sitting in the court and we're sitting in the public gallery. They have no jurisdiction in the public gallery. So they know that, and every time we ever went up to Westminster Court, there were always the same two Metropolitan Police officers there. So
Again,
it's a cesspit, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and what they're doing.
Sorry to interrupt you, but we've subsequently done some research on this, and there's £4 billion a week being extracted from the United Kingdom, and it goes into the tax havens. Now, Sir Anthony Stansford, who's I think he's retired now, was the Chief Constable. He's got a very good documentary on the internet that explains not only is it £200 billion a year being extracted from the United Kingdom, but they're also murdering on average 15 to 16 people per year to get the 4 billion. And it's ongoing. It's ongoing. And so is the paedophilia, so is the corruption. The police force have got the arrogance of organised crime behind them. So you can gather as much evidence as you see fit to do so, but where are you going to take it if at the end of the day there is no legal system? It's been corrupted. Where can you take your evidence, and what do you think they're going to do with it when you take it there? They're just going to bin it or turn it away, or if they fail on all of those, they will then murder you to shut you up. And that's what they do. You know, like the man says, this is the most corrupt country in the world, and we run the tax havens of the world, and it's all run from the city of Westminster. End of story, really, isn't it? You know, I don't think the general public are that interested, really, unless it affects them in their daily lives.
Which it will do soon.
Well, they play on that, don't they? And the legal system runs at snail's pace, and they hope that anybody, you know, if it, you know, it takes 30, 40 years sometimes to get a case overturned.
No, what I'm saying is it will affect everybody sooner or later, because they're coming for everybody. They're coming to take everything off everybody. So sooner or later they will.
It'll be too late.
I think Barry's trying to speak. I don't know how I sense that Barry's trying to speak.
No, I'm just taking it all in.
Just to go.
We're covering so many subjects here, aren't we?
Yeah. Just to enforce on what David's just said then about killing you. You know, that's exactly what happened to John Patterson, because that's exactly what John Patterson was exposing, especially with the money that was being laundered through the 788, 790 Finchley Road, which, by the way, if the police had any decency, John was telling you that all your pension funds have been funneled through 788, 790 Finchley, through to offshore accounts. We had all the documents, we had all the paper trails for the money, where the money had gone to, the accounts and everything, that Gordon Bowden had tracked and got all the forensic documentation to prove it.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just that. John was also exposing, again, which is the paedophilia side to this, because this is the connection which bonds all these criminals together, which keeps them united. And when John Patterson was exposing all this, they again tricked him on trumped up charges, put him into a building that was classed as that same building you just talked about, Westminster Magistrate Court, and they operated a complete fraud. I have the information from Westminster Magistrate Court themselves that there was never an information, right? There's nothing there.
Yes.
And they continued it through, and purely and simply because John couldn't see the hoax of what was being done, because they were all working together. His lawyer, who he signed himself, was now working in complete cahoots with the whole lot. Yeah. And they got him thrown up, and then they got him sectioned, and then they poisoned him off, and there was poisoning for a year. So that when I was explaining to him what's been done here, John, there's nothing in the case. They're saying there's a case, but they're reading your lawyer's got some paperwork from somewhere else. It's not been issued by the court, because there's nothing in the case, John. You've got no case to answer. You only have to say one simple thing: I have never been served with any proceedings issued by the court. There you go. I can only answer to what the proceedings. What's the proceedings? Where are the proceedings? Show me the case file. Show me what's in my case. What have I got to answer to?
The only problem, Andy, with that is that it's a predetermined death. It's not just a murder. It's a predetermination of an annihilation of that person. They don't care what it takes. Right. How is it possible that they put him in a mental health secure unit, we got him out on ground he wasn't mentally ill prior to them doing it again. This time they put him in the Chelmsford prison, and then they put him in a mental health unit. You cannot be criminally charged if you subsequently, you know, they've done this to Melanie Shaw. They're playing. When they have these serial paedophiles, they put the mental illness on them and get them out.
You can if you make a phantom court. Anything can happen in a phantom court.
No. What we're saying is it's not what you say, because I tell you what was done to John Patterson. He was punched in the temple outside Southwark Crown Court at the trial of Sabine McNeill. He was head injured, and then he had a broken nose at the trial of Edward Ellis. Prior to that, sorry. At the Royal Courts of Justice, he had a broken nose. So you've got this guy who's gone to serve some papers at the MI5 building, MI6 building at the Ministry of Defence, and he's been kidnapped from there whilst he's serving his court papers. But prior to that, he was serving his court papers in the Royal Courts of Justice. He was kidnapped by Sussex police at the front entrance of the Royal Courts of Justice, because the security guards inside were saying, oh, yeah, he's just popped out to go do the photocopying. You can grab him now. Police cars are parked in the car park of the Royal Courts of Justice. Any police force, Sussex police, know that they can go and kidnap any court users through the car park. And they attempted that on me at my trial, because police vans were parked around the car park and outside, and this is what they'd been doing for years and years and years. Look up the case of Mahajan, Ashok Mahajan. The guy was, somebody made a comment, a barrister woman. He had an empty cup of water, plastic water, flicked it, few drops of water, she screamed acid, acid, acid. So that's when they started looking in your handbags, making you drink your bottles, and they put him in jail. He lost his kidney over it. He's still in prison. He's been put in prison for life.
I met him when I was in Wandsworth.
Did you?
I spent a year with him in Wandsworth. We exchanged a lot of ideas, yeah.
Wow.
World, isn't it?
Wow.
Well, just to add more hypocrisy of all this, John,
isn't it coming together, eh? It's all coming together.
They'd got John Patterson and they'd been poisoning him for a year before they took him to the court.
Yeah.
So I take that back. Before they took him to the building, that they was operating a phantom court.
But Andy, we can't blame John Patterson. We can't blame him.
Please, Neelu, let me just say what I'm saying. Let me just say, I'm just going to show you the add to the hypocrisy of this. Where they had him under a false sectioning anyway, yeah, the doctor signed him as competent to make a plea. It went to this building that was operating as a court, yeah, and I'd filed them, I'd served them, and I would also created a resolver account with all the evidence. So we created our own case file, and I sent it to them, and they read it beforehand. And the judge said, I was going to give you 5 to 15 years, but I think we need to send you back into the hospital because we put you under a section. So they sectioned him when they just had him under a section for a year, under a fake section anyway, and the doctor had just signed him competent, and they resectioned him. The judge did. How crazy can you be? How much hypocrisy can you get?
So the judge.
Go on, Neelu.
The judge was impersonating a psychiatrist.
Yeah.
They attempted the same thing with me at one of my hearings in Westminster, and because I was babbling the common law argument and the straw man and so on, they decided I was psychologically unbalanced and I should go for an assessment. And unfortunately for them, I just had the assessment in the prison, and I actually had the assessment letter with me. So I presented it to the court, and I said, well, it says I'm perfectly sane. I'm just suffering from depression from all the number of people that have died around me and bereavement from losing all of my property and house and so on. So the judge went, oh, well, that's all right then, having inspected it, that's fine. And I stopped and I said, well, I'm sorry, under equality under law, you, Your Honour, and the prosecution now have to go for psychological assessment.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he adjourned, of course.
And for impersonating a psychiatrist.
Well, there you go.
They all should be brought in under a narcissism test. They all need to.
They'd fail miserably.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think one of the
digress.
things, I mean, we all of us have got all of these experiences. We're accumulating all this knowledge. One of the things is that people have trouble tapping into it. So, you know, those of us especially that only hear of the things that are going on at the last minute, so we don't get a chance to protect people early on. There's a lot of skills that could be applied early on that derail the whole process. A bit like these so-called bailiffs turning up to my house. Unless they present the correct paperwork, they have nothing to stand on. And
Yeah, but they know they don't have the paperwork. They
yeah,
know
but the public doesn't.
they know you know they don't have the paperwork. They don't care whether they have the paperwork or not, and they don't care whether you know that they don't have the paperwork. They don't care because
But you can change it. You can change that. Once you let them know that you know, then they are committing direct crimes. They're not just implying fraud. They're committing direct assault and battery and kidnapping and so on. And you can charge them with that. If necessary, you can take a civil case. Look at the Stephen Lawrence case. Stephen Lawrence's mum was not satisfied with the police letting the men off, so she took a civil case. When she won the civil case, the criminal case had to be reinstated because they'd proved beyond a shadow of a doubt the responsibility of the men. You can do the same yourself. So you take a civil case, very simple one in the local county court. Once you've proved the civil onus, then it has to follow that they have to do a criminal case. And this would apply to you, Neelu. I'm aware of your situation with your housing and so on. It's the same thing. Once you take a civil case, which they can't disprove.
That's the theory.
But I filed so many claims in the High Court, and they don't care. I mean, my baby niece, I don't know if you know the case of my baby niece.
I know the whole story, yeah.
Yeah, well, as a result of that, the death rate in the NHS dropped by 30% because of me being a professional pharmacist, a forensic pharmacist.
Yeah.
And they had to get me for that. That's my claim to being, you know, a whistleblower, is my professional status, that they struck me off for bringing the profession into disrepute, because saving 30% of deaths in the NHS is not deemed to be fit for purpose for my professional body, because they're terrorists.
There is a change going on. If you look, I mean, we haven't mentioned Julian Assange. You know, the man that's not been charged with anything, but is still being held in Belmarsh, you know, mental unit in the prison. You know, and we're meant to be a free country. Anybody that thinks we live in a democracy can just say Julian Assange to their MP. Anyone who's an MP at the moment needs to be, you know, resigning while that's happening on their watch. And that's one of the most public, high-profile cases, and yet nothing's happening.
They're waiting for him to die.
Of course they are, yeah, as they did with me.
Unless we tackle the babies and children issues in this country, because if babies and children are not heard, there is no country. You can't call this a country. It's a jungle.
Nobody's being heard.
It's a pantomime. It's a legal pantomime.
Everything that we think is democracy and law is a theatre. And once you crack it and you know the rules, you win.
But it's not just a theatre. It is a butcher house. It's a slaughterhouse for babies and children.
Well, that's what happens when you allow corruption to just run unstopped, you know, untrammeled. It just carries on and on and on, and it's getting worse and worse and worse as we go on.
But it all started about 500 years ago when they started the pirate shipping companies, the 1649 Act for the Promotion and Propagation of the Gospel of Jesus Christ.
That's all fine, but it's not relevant to the 21st century at the moment, is it? And if you start spouting that, people just switch off. You get the fluoride stare.
Well, no, today that company is called the New England Company, which is the Charity Commission. The Charity Commission is running with the banks, is running the entire show for the crimes against humanity, but it starts with the crimes against babies first and then children.
Well, as Andrew said, it's all the Finchley Road connection is there. It's all there in front of us. Look at the latest release of Panama Papers. It just reinforces all that information once again. But when it's top to bottom and left to right, as far as you can see, what do? There's four of us here on this screen. There are probably 400,000 people directly involved in fighting the system. Where are we getting? Look at Edward. He's got 262 individual cases, any one of which would bring down the government. And yet he's being stopped at every turn in the High Court.
So you don't think it's just Sussex Police or Welsh or Scottish or Northern Ireland Police? It's an entire network.
I can prove that it's an entire network. I have all the evidence. I have the evidence on the Jill Dando murder and the link all the way to Tony Blair. I have the evidence of the flight that they brought the Bosnian Secret Service man over to London in, and the Chelsea house where the MI6 kept him for 2 days while he did the job for them and then flew him back. I've got the name of the pilot, who was also charged with the proceeds of crime, the navigator who was killed in prison, the other gentleman that was involved who's also dead now. They've killed all of the witnesses. My predecessor, who was also involved in the Jill Dando information, he died, funnily enough, of an embolism, which is what they tried to kill me with. It's all interlinked. We have all the proof we need, but there's no one to report it to. Journalists are all controlled. The police are all working for them. Where are you going to go? Who are you going to say it to?
This was exactly what I've been fighting. That's why I brought back with the flag for the land flag, so that we can create the jurisdiction of our own courts on the land. Don't have to come through no bar association.
And that's the only way it's going to happen. Is if might is right, then we have to have bigger might, which is how we've had our successes in Brighton with a larger group of thugs than they bring, and we prevent the repossessions of houses.
Yeah.
And they don't come back because they know that we'll just get another 40 thugs and round them up again.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
It's the only way. There are 100,000 of us for every one of them. But it's convincing the fluoride stare brigade and the mask wearers to turn around and look up.
Yeah. That's it. That's what I do. I mean, that's all we can do. All we can do is keep doing things like what we're doing right now, which basically exposes people, because people have to see it to believe it, because they can't see that it's too big. It's too big. And there's too many of them. It's the power of the numbers, because they're all the power of a group, Tavistock institution. Because they're all working together as one, they will just go along with it. People will just go along with it because they can't see it. Yeah.
I mean, you know the cognitive dissonance when you tell somebody your own story and they just wobble because they cannot believe that A, the police are corrupt, or B, that the government's involved in such things. We've all seen it. You get that cognitive sweep as they go across their eyes and they just can't cope with it because they've been programmed since children. And it's going on now, this programming with the virus, this programming with the vaccine, the programming with the booster shot. Now they're talking about a daily dose of 2 tablets for the virus. All for a thing that's not been isolated properly medically. But there we go. That's another story.
It's the Santa Claus bug.
Yeah.
No, proven to exist, but by crikey, there's plenty of people believing it.
So Barry, are you going to get some people outside your door just to protect you in case they come back? Because you said you're waiting for them to come back and break your door?
Yeah, well, that's fine. Neelu, my history, I used to be in the Royal Air Force. I was an unarmed combat instructor. I'm a 12th Dan in Kempo Karate, and I weigh 150 kilos. I can look after myself, thanks. And I'm in a 250 kilo wheelchair, remember, that can do 16 miles an hour. So no, I have no worries. They had me very politely last time because I was one of the sheeple and I was one of the fluoride starers, and I believed in truth and justice, and I sat there saying, yeah, that's fine, you can arrest me and I'll come to court because the truth will out, and I believe in justice. The truth will out, the truth will out. And there I was sitting in prison with an 8-year charge thinking, what happened to the truth? I had precisely 30 minutes with my barrister for a 13-week court case in Southwark Court. They never allowed me any of my staff in as witnesses. They never allowed any of the audited accountants, and I had one for every company.
Ex parte.
Yeah.
Ex parte.
Yeah, they held the main hearing they held against me with the proceeds of crime illegally. They held it ex parte, so they didn't allow any of the agents or other people, the staff and the people that I owed money to go in and get their money either. And of course, if you hold an ex parte hearing, and it was in a real court at that stage, everything that follows is illegal.
But can we conclude that this entire corporate structure with its judiciary and its police force and its bailiffs is deemed as
unfit,
as void for regarding all prisoners, regarding all mental health cases?
It goes without saying, Neelu.
Blanket release of all political prisoners, all prisoners, because we've got criminals in office. Surely you can just close the prisons tomorrow and we'll be safer because those people protect us.
No, I wouldn't close them. I'd stick all the MPs and chief constables and judges in there, actually.
Well, you really got
They're a public hazard. They're all a public hazard.
they
And
they need to be removed from the
They're
planet.
a threat to the public. No, I wouldn't mind their heads on pikes around Westminster. That might be a reminder. But no, I think they should go to prison. And
What about sorry, interrupting. What about the George Martin case, where he supposed to have shot the burglar?
Yeah, do you remember the farmer that had the place in Norfolk and he was accused of waiting at the top of the stairs with his shotgun?
Yeah.
Well, the forensics showed that the lad that he was meant to have shot in the back wasn't shot with his shotgun and was shot 7 hours before they found him at his house. The police had framed the whole thing. And then when you look at the history of that case and now look at who now owns his farm, the chief constable and his wife now have his farm.
Okay.
The evidence is there for anybody to see.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
When you do the digging, you find out all you need to know.
So can we conclude that all cases covered in mainstream media are cooked books cases?
Well, one of the things that happens is with these cases, sometimes you see somebody getting some justice, don't you? In Southwark or in the criminal court, somebody somewhere gets a little bit of justice. And that's the little piece of salt that they sprinkle to convince the populace that they're actually getting a justice system. But everything that's gone on, everything that's involved, all police, because one of the questions people ask me is, well, surely if they were bad police, they'd be found out. Well, they won't, will they? Because if there were any good police, they'd be arresting the bad police. If there were any good judges, they'd be arresting the bad judges.
That's
They're
right.
thoroughly rotten from top to bottom. Because if there were any good guys, if there were any good guys in the system, they'd either resign or they'd fight. There aren't any good guys in the system.
Well, the courts have turned into cash portals, haven't they, for organised crime? I mean, how much money do we reckon goes through Westminster Court? And, it's best part of, it's hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pounds. That's why they've got 2 Metropolitan Police officers sitting in the court, keeping tabs on the money.
Billions.
I mean, they're going through £500 million a week.
I mean, most people will be familiar with the County Court Money Collection Centre, CCMCC. It's a company at a PO box next to the Royal Mail Centre in Salford. It's owned by a Pakistani family that's controlled by another company that merely does medical compensation cases. £47.8 billion a year goes through CCMCC in Salford, and they're made up cases. These are the speeding fines and other things.
Well,
Once you dig, you find out the information.
Interrupting you, I quickly looked on CDER. It's owned by a Japanese company.
Yes. Yeah, so where's their jurisdiction then?
Well, there's no email address for the CEO, I noticed.
Which is illegal.
Of the parent company.
I mean, one of the interesting points about that under British law is if you buy a share in that company, they can't arrest you or deal with you because technically you're their employer.
Well, tell the people about the chief constables owning the council or vice versa.
Oh, well, not many people know, but Nottinghamshire is an interesting one. Nottinghamshire Council is owned by the Police Welfare Fund. So the police in Nottinghamshire actually own the council. That's an interesting one. So the police pension fund basically owns the council. And the council is the one that employs the police. So I'll leave you to work that one out. But yeah, all of this information is there if you dig hard enough. But of course, who the hell do you report it to?
Well, Sussex Police Co-Limited registered office is in Bexhill. It's not at the Lewis Police Headquarters.
Well, that's because they were all privatised in 2008.
Yeah, it's a private company. Sussex Police is a private company, co-limited.
IBM owns Devon and Cornwall Police. So if you have an IBM share in your wallet, you can't be stopped for speeding or anything in Devon and Cornwall.
And so it goes on.
Did you hear that 2007 a Blues and Twos company bought like Yorkshire Council? And then in 2008, IBM bought it. So
yes.
This is where the Men with Heels Centre is, where the mind control centre is, where they're controlling us electronically with the 5G and all that. So it's all connected with I think all the councils and all the police came under IBM, and then they sabotaged.
Yeah. IBM had the contract for the computers in the first place, and then the money just kept coming in. Yeah.
Or public services, and Field McConnell called Mischief Makers. It's got about 100 women like Sherry Blair, Cressida Dick,
Hillary Clinton and so on. Yeah.
Yeah. So they've got this video guard software that they've been using to frame honourable judges. They don't use guns anymore like they did with my dad.
Blackmail.
In the 60s, they now use the paedophile, this software called Video Guard to frame honourable judges, to get rid of, so that they only retain the criminal judges, the puppet judges, the ones that are under blackmail and death threats. So we have a problem. We have a global problem.
Just on what you just said there, Neelu, actually, you just sparked another thought in my head, because I said about, are you a member of the Bar Association, secret society, or are you under because have you got a different oath? Never mind that you've got a secret oath that's going to supersede your public oath. Are you also under any threat of blackmail? I should also say that. Because at the end of the day, it's finding somebody that's in a position that's not been compromised already.
Impossible, yeah.
That's the position. And if you do find somebody, can you get enough people around him to protect him to do what he needs to do?
Well, I think that's the work that Edward's doing. Edward Ellis is doing with the
exactly,
the bringing it all together.
Equity Monarchy Trusts.
Well done, Dave.
The website is equitygovernance.uk, and there's if you type in Barry Brooks, you'll find his case there. If you type Neelu Berry, you'll find mine.
Yep.
And David Bradley, you'll find David's there. And who else? Edward Ellis doesn't really put much about his own case where with the Law Society, but they're trying to...
well, they've tried to kidnap him several times, haven't they? They've tried to poison him while he's having dialysis.
Yeah, they did 13 attempts to kidnap him while he was staying with me. And the mental health fraud. For the mental health teams, I've got video footage of the police officers breaking the door with locksmiths, checking the locks, and literally coming in with tasers. The police go in first with tasers. If they think somebody's under page 17, somebody's going to harm themselves, you don't send police to the door with tasers.
Taser drawn. So don't forget to add that. Didn't go in with taser. They went in with the taser drawn.
They're not on their hip. They're in their hand.
Yeah. Absolutely correct. Correct, with intent to kill. That would kill.
Prepared for use, in the hands, prepared for use.
Correct. Yes.
And somebody with a 4% kidney function, 96% not working, he would be dead on the spot.
They know
not just Edward, but all of us.
You've hit the nail on the head there. I mean, this is not an arrest warrant this morning at 7:30. It's a death warrant.
It is. It is an extrajudicial, self-made, what do you call it when they write these things themselves? A computer-generated. It's a mind boggles what they're doing, isn't it? It's honestly they've got to be treasonous criminals. They've got to be guilty of treason. If anybody's ever broken a door, somebody's home, made them homeless, stolen their children, it's a crime of treason. We've got to agree this, because we're going to have to deal with these people who think that they can do this, and it's okay because we can't do nothing about it. But
at the very least, it's misprision of treason across the board. Yes.
Right.
Well,
so
we had one of the judges on the pantomime turn around and committed perjury, documented perjury, saying that she listened to Barry Brooks. She didn't listen to Barry Brooks. She told him he wasn't allowed to speak. He's not allowed, he can stay, but he can't speak. 3 weeks later, she wrote down in her report, upon hearing the pleas of Barry Brooks, he wasn't allowed to speak.
Yeah, but
it's
David,
perjury, isn't it?
Yeah, but David, when a judge is not a judge, not an honourable judge, because they're not under their oath to God, to maintain God's laws, to serve and protect God's children, that judge is, the judge is impersonating a judge, they're not covered by the privileges of not being liable for prosecution. So they can be charged with treason. A judge can be charged with treason because they are not under their oath.
And who are you going to report it to? And who are you going to get to charge him and arrest him?
Another judge.
or another policeman.
Any way we can do it is by having people in those positions that are under a public oath and nothing else.
Yeah.
Nothing else is compromising it.
The other way is to, I mean, I've had 42 adjournments and 42 judges have run away from me. Once you are empowered with the knowledge, you can control that room, because it's not a court, you can control the room. And once you let them know, I mean, there is no arrest warrant for me. There's nothing in writing. There's nothing on the system. I was on probation for 4 years following my prison sentence. And of course, they're not allowed to give me probation services if there's anything outstanding. So they checked on their system. There's nothing. All of these pieces of paper are unsigned from a room, like Andrew says.
That goes
no weight of law. And as long as you know that and you're empowered with that information, you can fight them.
And you can request that. You can request that information. Then you
have an absolute right under law to request the paperwork. And the minute they provide anything that's signed or faked, then they're committing fraud, and you do have them.
Yeah, but that's all very well, because you can get 42 occasions, you've dealt with it. Imagine that most of the people are not that enlightened as yourself.
That's what I was saying earlier. This is where we're going wrong. We need to make sure that we disseminate the information easily for people so they're armed.
Because we're dealing with women and children and babies being snatched at birth.
Well, that's why we organise the thug crew, as we call it, that turn up to.
But there's another way. There is another way. There is another way, because the financial system now, we found out that the fiat currency total wealth on this planet is $418 trillion, out of which $124 trillion is in America, and that includes the debts. 12 trillion is in India, I know that. UK is probably about 24 trillion. But point is that the actual value of the assets-based currency in gold is $1 quintillion that is being distributed to humanity, which is 2,200 times more than what the total wealth they have presented in fiat, which means that every pound in your pocket is worth £2,200. That's what it means in gold. And because a case has been filed in South Africa looking for a $700 quintillion of asset-based currency that's gone missing by a judge called Fanny Fonse and a military marshal called Larry Swart of the World Marshal Authority. So these guys in South Africa and their teams of the Real Democracy Group have filed these cases in February last year, and because they didn't, the 700 quintillion disappeared from one account with the South African Reserve Bank between the two statements of 2007 and 2012. So they filed that case, and because they didn't get the money hasn't turned up, they've actually decided to give a 10-day notice to the South African government, which they gave at the Union Building Gardens in Pretoria on the 3rd of October, just gone. A 10-day notice, which is 2 weeks working, so around 17th of October is the date when the military will remove the government officials from the public building if they have not already left. It's a 10-day notice to quit for being unfit for purpose. And because that 700 quintillion was money laundered through the boiler rooms all around the world and offshore accounts and all these criminal networks, the whole world will then be removed. The governments will be removed by the military. The World Military Authority will remove the governments on the 17th of October 2021.
You're a bit more optimistic than me.
Well, it's because I've been on this since 1992. Yeah. I've been on this journey.
Yeah.
I fought against actually the Bromley Health Authority, and I won a race discrimination case against them in 1992.
Yeah.
I won a case against the Maudsley Hospital, and I specialised in mental health at Canehill Hospital, where I was the advisor pharmacist for the psychiatrists who were shutting down the 2,000-bed Canehill Hospital to put these people out in the community, and I had to take them all off their medication.
Yeah, in the community, I remember it, yeah.
Yep, I did that. I was the only pharmacist, the community development pharmacist for mental health in the UK. And I had a big job and I knew nothing about mental health when I went in. But after the 2 years, I had to sue them because I was so good, they got rid of me. I had to sue them for that. And I won against them. So that put me in a position, but the race equality council helped me with that case.
Yeah.
And then when my baby niece died, I had cancer. I was terminally ill. I was literally had about 6 months to live. But then when they murdered my niece, I was determined to go swimming every day. I wanted to fight this. I really wanted to fight this. And she actually, when the day she died, she was born on my birthday, murdered on my sister's birthday. The day she died was the day I kind of came back to life. You know, it was like, I'm not going to let this go. And it was like she gave me the life because she was born on my birthday. She came to give me life. And she kept me going. She may give me a purpose to live, you know, and me and her are like, we're Durga goddesses. We fight Satan. We kill Satan. Men can't do that. Women can. Women do. Historically, women do it. Because men will fight to death and every man who fights Satan will die because Satan does not allow, but a woman will kill Satan. She does.
Okay. But my problem with what you were saying in South Africa is, will the military go in and depose the government that actually employs them?
No, this is
Britain, would they do it in America?
This is American military via Germany in South Africa. They've already got them in place. The US Marshal is under His Majesty Mr. Sino.
I look forward to seeing it happen then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know, what I'm saying is the remedy.
We stay hopeful. We have to.
The remedy is not going to come from the UK. The UK is a jungle of animals and cannibals, right? There's nothing in England that's going to come and get remedy because they're in a box. They're in a bee jar. They're in a bee in a jar. You can't make honey putting a bee in a jar. That's what we are. The whole world has been raped by England, you know, and hundreds of years ago. So England, I mean, I'm like one of the kind of pedigree princesses from India that ended up here because my family of judges were destroyed.
But it's still going on. It's still ongoing, isn't it? I mean, we do it via the tax havens, don't we? I mean, we rob the poor and then put the money into tax havens around the world. And it's all run from the city of Westminster, isn't it? I mean, you know,
yeah, but for example, let me give you an example. My ex-husband's nephew is the Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rishi Sunak, okay? He came to my wedding as a 5-year-old. Now, if I explain to you how he became the Chancellor of the Exchequer, it will bring you to tears, really would bring you to tears. So 1839 slavery laws were abolished in Africa. They got millions of royals from India on ships to run the fields with chains in their ankles, promised them the whole of Africa, put them in chains because the slavery abolition laws did not protect the royals from India from running the fields. Okay? So my ex-husband's mother was a cleaner. You know, I know they put all out about how she left her family in Africa, she left her children there, came here. Her husband was running a temple. At the same time he's running the temple, he was also a tax inspector. He collected £25 million in taxes from the people who didn't know that this honourable charity worker was actually grassing them up to the tax people, collecting all this money. So he got an OBE from the Queen, and now his grandson is the Chancellor of the Exchequer. You know, so do you know what I mean? It's like, and the whole of Parliament are all these children that are from these kind of families that were royals, originally royals, enslaved, and all they got to show for it is like, you know, there you are, you've got your grandson as a Chancellor of the Exchequer, and it makes me sad, makes me really sad that this is how it, you know,
it's the way of the world.
Destroyed. The family is totally destroyed when they just told what to do. They're script readers. That's all they don't have to do any intelligence. Just read it out, put your suit on, look good, you know, and it's all scripted. The whole of Parliament is scripted, and it's very sad when I mean, he's only a kid. He's only like 40 years old, but people think, oh, you know, he's got to be a bad person, but it's not. It's all puppetry from honourable people who've been treated very badly by the British. Honestly, it's really, really bad.
He always looks like a school sixth former to me when I see him.
Yeah, exactly. They're very strong physically. This family, very physically strong.
Well, very physically rich as well, aren't they? His wife's a billionaire.
But then that's money laundering in India, isn't it? How do you become a billionaire in India unless you're part of the corporate structure and you bought out? And this is part of the deal.
Same argument in every country, Neelu. It's the same argument in every country.
Yeah, but we got the structure. There's nothing you can do with this structure. It's no good talking to the structure because it's unfit for purpose. It's a global structure. The whole of we can't vent a personal issue. These people, it doesn't matter their names because the scripts come from the same script writers. The script writers are in the Vatican, sitting in the church. The church is writing all these scripts. It's all about Christianity. Everyone has to be forced to be a Christian. All the royals had to convert to Christianity. They all had to go to boarding schools where they got beaten and raped. You know, this is like, it's totally unfit for purpose. There's nothing you can do to it. Just leave it, forget it, do 180 degrees, about turn, go and get your gold. Your prosperity's waiting there. $700 quintillion instead of 418 trillion. That's £1.5 million for every pound you have in your pocket.
I'll take mine in Bitcoin.
It doesn't matter what you call it. The gold is the gold. You've still got to deal with the gold. The equal share of gold doesn't change. You can call it whatever you want, your gold. You can have as many different names as you want. But your gold share is your gold share. And that's it. That's fixed amount. It's equal share.
Time to go.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks for your time.
Anytime.
Good to speak to you.
It's been a blast.
Take care, boss. Take care, David.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good luck to you all. Bye-bye.
You too, Barry. We're going to learn from you.